Magic?
How about some Magic deck lists?
Ooh, all right. Well, this is none other than the boogeyman of the format. Tell me about this deck, Phil.
All right, so this is sort of the popular Delver deck of the time, Blue-Black Shadow. Really sort of the breakout deck at the Pro Tour. It has very aggressive threats at a low mana cost. So Delver, Death Shadow, and Gurmag Angler all effectively cost 1 mana. So does Street Wraith, because if you're putting that into play, you're doing it via a Reanimate, preferably on turn 1. Now, some of these cards require some setup, so it's not the fastest Delver deck in the world. This doesn't goldfish quite as quickly as something like Grixis Delver in the previous format, for example, but it is hyper mana efficient in comparison to some other Delver decks.
Right. Very interestingly enough, I'm fascinated that Bonde is choosing this deck, given that it's naturally weak to Swords to Plowshares. You know what I mean? Like Gurmag Angler and Death Shadow. Swords to Plowshares is really good against those too. But I do like certain things. For example, the main deck Liliana the Last Hope. That's pretty exciting. I do like the 2 copies of Stubborn Denial in this matchup. And I, as a Miracles player, am actually just mortified of this sideboard. Check it out. 3 Hymn to Torment.
Oh my gosh.
2 Bitter Blossom, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Ratchet Bomb, and even if you're feeling spicy, the Surgical Extraction and the Dread of Night can come in. It's very interesting. He's actually got Toxic Deluge, but that's neither here nor there.
That's a combo.
Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win Game 1 and Game 2? And 3? I don't know if there's a third one, but...
So I like Miracles in Game 1, but this is just Haymaker sideboard, right? Hit them with him. Hit them with Bitter Blossom. Oh, they're down? Oh, man, let's just punch harder with Thoughtseize. This seems like a sideboard that is well suited to the matchup.
I'm really just I want to see the turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 1 Thoughtseize, take your Snapcaster, turn 2 Hymn to Torok, turn 3 reanimate your Snapcaster, Hymn to Torok you again. Let's dive into the games. I think Bonde is going to be a little bit favored in the post-board matches too.
Honestly, this Liliana that we see in the opener here is kind of sweet.
I agree.
Miracles does not have very many ways to pressure Planeswalkers, and even if they can pressure them, a lot of times they can't do it quickly. Their best is just a Snapcaster Mage, which Liliana answers.
Right.
So
oh yeah, sorry. So one other thing is that the Liliana also looks pretty nice with the Reanimate in Bonde's hand. Bonde drawing Delver of Secrets for the turn. Delver being one of the threats that can come down a little bit earlier than the other ones. Meanwhile, Jarvis just playing some basics out. Land go.
So unfortunately, Stubborn Denial is just a soft counterspell right now. It's just Force Spike right now. It's with the bigger threats that card really shines.
Right.
I don't think we want a Stubborn Denial a draw 1 card.
Right.
That's fine. That can happen.
It's interesting that Bonde gets a Underground Sea here and not a Watery Grave, given that he has Death Shadow in his hand. That could have been a misclick. It also could have been some insane respect for Monastery Mentor or something like that. Let's see how Jarvis chooses to use this turn.
So if I were to guess, Michael is not in a position where he can play that Death Shadow anytime soon. And since his opponent is also a Swords to Plowshares deck, the Death Shadow isn't necessarily going to be good at all for a very, very long time.
Okay.
So by not fetching the Watery Grave, he is just playing better to his current situation given the matchup.
Gotcha. Just for an update in the chat, currently the matches are even out at 1-1. Both players on their second deck of choice. Back to the match, their Delver of Secrets going to flip to a Ponder, but I'm imagining Jarvis kept his Ponder, which showed us Brainstorm, Ponder, and Terminus. So this is still a tight game. Right now we're at the stage of the game where Miracles is just trying to make land drops, devote some tempo negative cards like, cantrips to sort of set up the late game a little bit better. But it looks like
Wow, just jamming that.
Yeah, Bonde's not having...
How many main deck discard spells does he have? Is it just 4?
I think it was just 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Force of Will, yeah.
Okay. So in game 1, I can see jamming that. In a post-sideboard game where there's more like hymns and stuff, I might have tried to like wait a little bit and protect that. Like even if you just like wait until you get to a 4th land and then like cast it with Stubborn Denial up, that's better than nothing. But I can totally understand jamming there if he only has just a couple of ways to, preemptively peek at the hand.
Right. Now this is interesting. Jarvis is going to Terminus here, and he's respecting days by not casting the Monastery Mentor. And I believe there's still a Ponder on top of his deck, which is going to be a very good draw in this situation. You want to have the cantrips to just sort of keep the gas flowing. Maybe find us a couple Snapcaster Mages, the 1-of Counterspell. Something that will let us get this Mentor into play and to do damage. And Bonde is going to look at 3 cards off Ponder, keep it on top, draw a Brainstorm. But there's no pressure that he has immediately, which is...
It's a huge problem, because if he has no pressure, we could see something like a Mentor or a Jace come down on the other side of the table sometime soonish, and he does not want to be behind on tempo in this matchup.
Right, and so right now it's kind of weird because, he does have a number of threats that he could draw into. Gurmag Angler is a good one. Probably could cast it this turn too, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the fetch land is 6. And then that would let him untap with Stubborn Denial. We draw Thoughtseize, we could take the Monastery Mentor in Jarvis's hand and reanimate that. That sounds filthy.
I really like killing my opponent with their cards. That brings me great pleasure.
But given what it is right now, I have to say that Bonde's kind of favored in this match. Or in this game, sorry. Let's see if he can close out. Oh, he didn't cast the Gurmag Angler. Very interesting. I guess he's playing around maybe potential land Jace?
No, I think he wants to cast it on his next turn when he can play it with Stubborn Denial up. And once Angler resolves, it is a hard counter. So it beats the first Swords to Plowshares.
And the other point is... Oh, yeah, sorry.
And if he top decks a discard spell as well, that's even better.
Yeah, the other reason I like doing it is because we know Jarvis kept off the Ponder, so potentially there could be another copy of Terminus there. No reason to take that risk if you're planning to play it slowly. This is a very grinded out sort of game 1 that we've already locked ourselves into, so just stay consistent with the plan and, just play as tight as possible. This Thoughtseize, though, very, very good.
One other thing to consider is that with Jarvis on 3 lands, if he draws the 4th, he could just try to slam a Jace. And the Stubborn Denial could nug the Jace in that spot.
Okay.
Or waiting 1 turn, flopping Gurmag Angler into play with Stubborn Denial up protects it from Jace bounce, which would be devastating tempo loss.
Now, it's just going to happen. There's no way that we don't see the Monastery Mentor get reanimated, right?
It's totally got to happen.
Oh, God, I'm excited.
So I don't think you do it until after the Gurmag Angler has been answered. You don't want to lose 2 cards to a Terminus or anything of that nature.
Okay.
So I think you don't do it immediately. You do it once the board's clear.
And we know that there is a Terminus on top of the deck. Why? Because we saw it with the Thoughtseize. The Brainstorm obviously going to put that one back on top of the deck. Let's see how Bonde chooses to progress with this game. I still think he's favored. 2 reanimates in his hand means that if the particular exchange of Terminus and then, Bonde casts a reanimate to get the Mentor, Jarvis Force of Wills, then he casts another reanimate. And then he could even cast the Death's Shadow.
Yeah, we are to the point where Death's Shadow is becoming a threat.
Psych, I also forgot that Stubborn Denial was in his hand, and that is just going to completely blow out. Wait, maybe not.
Oh, accumulated knowledge, drawing into another Force of Will here.
Those were some really sick draws. Wow.
So now we'll see second Swords to Plowshares on the Angler, Force of Will back up. So now we'll see reanimate the Mentor, force, reanimate the Mentor again.
Yeah, this is pretty filthy stuff. That being said, I wonder how much fetching for that underground sea earlier cost him, because 5 life, or the difference of 2 life here means that Michael would actually be at 11 right now, so he could actually cast the Death Shadow should he have needed to.
No, I don't think you actually wanted to cast the Death Shadow this turn. Casting the Ponder lets you create a monk token, and then you can get into the situation where if there's a Swords to Plowshares pointed at the Monastery Mentor, you actually snuff it out to put it back into the graveyard, lowering your life so that you can use the Death Shadow.
That's pretty dirty. An AK off the top here, though. Ooh, AK into AK. Now, this is kind of risky, though, because... Yeah, I think... Does this mean that Jarvis is just dead here? Will Mentor be able to kill him? I can't do combat math without pad and paper very clearly.
Right. There's 4 damage on board, and now we can see Ponder create a monk, snuff out the monk, and it is lethal.
Okay, powerful stuff. Man, that is... Dude, I get giddy when I see Reanimate just be like a powerhouse there. It's so freaking flexible. Who added it to the list? Was it Raptor? Somebody mentioned in a CFB article that it got put in there, and that's what it is. Daze the draw 4, next turn untap, swing for lethal. So in what I consider to be an upset, Michael takes game 1. Let's see how Jarvis deals with this in the next few games. We've already identified a few cards that Michael's going to bring in.
So let's look at Jarvis's side then. Sure. He's got some Pyroblast, which seem fine. They kill Delver, they nug cantrips. How is Counterbalance here? It seems like the Delver deck's really heavily saturated at 1, but is this worth the setup time here?
I think it's a very good mid-game card to play around if you can resolve it, because of what you mentioned, because the Shadow deck with, look at that, 24 1-drops, that's absurd, or some amount, and just being able to attack that density of 1 CMC spells is just very, very, very worth it. I do like that Jarvis has cut Force of Will.
I'm a little surprised not to see the Pyroblasts.
Yeah, so if you look at, if you just look at the right side of the screen, you can see that it's just kind of like half of Bonde's deck is face black, and Pyroblast is just kind of embarrassing. Like if your opponent goes Gurmag and you just sit with the Pyroblast in your hand, it's not that good. But so I can understand not bringing it in.
I can see that.
Yeah. Plus Wasteland, yada yada yada. But anyways, both players going to keep 7, it seems.
Yeah. Okay, there is a Delver off screen that we cannot see here.
So
that is a triple Delver opener, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the stuff of nightmares. With double Flusterstorm backup. Oh my gosh.
So this is going to be interesting. Looking at Jarvis's hand, he actually does not have a white source currently. So this Terminus currently does nothing. A top deck Swords to Plowshare does nothing.
Right.
So he can Flusterstorm the first piece of interaction from his opponent and try to stick a Counterbalance. I don't know how good this hand actually is.
Yeah, this one is definitely on the keepable but not great side of things. I don't think you can afford to mulligan something like this because you go down in cards and then you can just easily get snowballed in. It's pretty public knowledge that Hymn to Torak is something you'll see out of the Death Shadow deck, and having one of those resolve against you is just an absolute nightmare. So I I would keep it too. I'm not excited about this. Things need to definitely go right for Jarvis to come out in a commandeering position. But let's see. I think right now the decision is in Bonde's hand. Actually, it looks like we're still stuck in Sammy GG's main phase. But if you're on Bonde's side of the table, do you lead with the Delver, Thoughtseize, hold up Flusterstorm?
I think I'm fine with leading on a Delver on turn 1, so that on turn 2 I have the option to either Thoughtseize or Flusterstorm, kind of depending on where the rest of the game is going here.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. I think especially when you have 3 Delver Secrets in your hand, it's literally your hand is just screaming to you like, play me, play me, play me. Or maybe I'm not wrong. I mean, okay, it was a Daze. I apologize. It wasn't another Delver of Secrets. I can't actually see the thing on my side of the screen, but so counterbalance here, going to get Dazed. Pass the turn. Delver does not flip, but now it looks like things are going to get crazy from the.
What do you want to Thoughtseize here?
That is interesting. That's a good question. I'm not sure. So, a lot of things to consider. Okay? So he takes the Jace because, admittedly, that's the only thing that really does something here. But depending on how long you want to play the game, you could even like take the Terminus, try and like stop Jarvis from
drawing a Brainstorm. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you could take the Flusterstorm if you're really trying to resolve a Himbatorok.
I was also of the opinion that taking the Jace is probably the best play.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has Flusterstorm to fight Flusterstorm. The accumulated knowledge isn't really doing anything right now, and the Terminus represents no immediate threat without the Jace there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's it's pretty good. I'm happy with taking the Jace. The second Thoughtseize off the top though is going to be kind of scary. Let's see. So Jarvis cycles in AK in response.
Yeah, and this is building the storm count towards a Flusterstorm as well.
And he's going to Flusterstorm this Thoughtseize, and that's interesting. I think he realizes that one of his outs in this game is to draw Brainstorm for the Terminus. And it's tricky. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is the thing of nightmares. Like,
oh, God. How do I click?
Well, we know it works out because Bonde is going to target one copy of each of Jarvis's Flusterstorms with his own Flusterstorms, and Jarvis has no mana to pay. So, in theory, should work out properly.
I do want to take this moment to say that most of the time, Magic Online works as intended. Most of the time, it's pretty clear how to do everything. There are a few specific cards and a few specific interactions that the program really has trouble with. This is one of them. Oh my God, Jace is like one of the best possible draws here. Whew.
Wow. Jarvis, hashtag always lucky you. Oh my God, that is so brutal.
Get out. And this forces him to commit multiple creatures to the board. So now, like a Brainstorm can put this Terminus back and potentially get a 2-for-1 and a back to basics.
This is.
No, this back to basics is a little awkward. He does have. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. It's not the cleanest thing that we've ever seen, but and in fact, he's not even going to. Okay. Ooh. Well, that's a. Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay, that's a good draw from Jarvis's side, but he doesn't know about the second Flusterstorm in Michael's hand. So the idea is here Jarvis can play a land, and then on the next upkeep, accumulated knowledge into a Terminus to wipe the board, keep Jace alive. But the Flusterstorm is going to have something to say about that. I think casting the Ponder there was also respectable because it gives you another look at finding like a Brainstorm or maybe like a white source to cast a Supreme Verdict. That would have been nuts.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we're still in the upkeep.
Watch. It's so gross.
I mean, that was a disgusting top deck, and that's what seemed like a completely lopsided game. Sorry, for Michael Bonde, completely evened out with just one card drawn off the top, and. This is actually, I don't know, this is still so close because...
It's still a game, though, right? Because with the second white source, this Supreme Verdict does spin things back in another direction.
Right. The problem is Tundra is a mighty juicy wasteland target. And also, I don't know, like, we're kind of just like... praying to the gods at this point from Jarvis's side, right? Like that we find another like hot fire card off the top.
Has he offered his prayers to Keranos? Is he a Keranos man?
He tried it once. Did he win? I don't know. Ooh, now this is...
I don't know if I like that. Does this guarantee lethal if the Delver flips or something?
I don't think it does, because that's 4, 3, and 3 if the Delver flips, and that, to my math, is only 10.
Jarvis in chat confirms that he is indeed a Keranos man, so that's good to know.
All right, well, if we can find a white source off this... Oh, we're just going to flashback accumulated knowledge to draw more cards? All right. Ooh, and there it is.
I respect that.
There it is. I like it. I like it.
The Snapcaster also gives a chump block to the Death Shadow.
Yep. And you know what? Why not? Source to Plowshares for, all the giggles.
So I think I put Island on bottom, then Swords to Plowshares, and draw the Flusterstorm right now.
I think that's fine. Flusterstorm is a little bit of a tricky one because it doesn't really stop a Thoughtseize off the top of the deck, but it does stop him to Torog. And, Michael's already used 2 copies of Thoughtseize anyways, so... Now this one's interesting. Do you Brainstorm? Do you Flusterstorm the Brainstorm? Jarvis decides not to.
I would have nugged it personally. There's a very real argument not to.
Mm-hmm.
But given the potential that it might be dead against just a solid 1-mana play on the next turn, I like limiting my opponent's options.
Yeah. Now this is rather unfortunate because Jarvis is going to suffer the Wasteland. Yeah, I know. So Supreme Verdict yet again remains uncastable, but well, let's see. I mean, because this is sort of where do you think Michael's head's at? He might go for the Volcanic Island because it's the only red source, or he might have the heads up 200 IQ play that there's a Verdict looming around. And
I really like playing the Bitter Blossom prior to using the Wasteland, though.
Yeah, and this is... Yeah, I mean, Bitter Blossom is also just a super resilient threat, so...
So I do like taking the Tundra over the Volcanic Island for another reason, in that it also just stops a miracle to Entreat the Angels.
Entreat the Angels, Council's Judgment, number of white spells. And here this is kind of unfortunate because it just seems like Jarvis has a lot of good answers, but he's just so behind on tempo. It's just being attacked and attacked and attacked that doesn't really feel like it does much. And yeah, so unfortunately he won't find the second white source to ever cast a Supreme Verdict. And Lamplot's going to take it 2-0 in the third match of this best of 5 series.
All right. So Robo Jarvis now on the ropes.
Right? Yeah.
Can he run it back?
One more loss and he gets knocked out. So now he's going to have to bring... I mean, I hope this third deck, whatever it may be, gets him there. I mean, let's take just a quick review of what we just saw. Game 1 was a surprise upset from Michael Bonde playing Blue-Black Shadow against Jarvis's Miracles. And he had a number of really good threats. Gurmag English, Stubborn Denial, Liliana, The Last Hope, to sort of just combat the Miracles menace. And then in Game 2, we saw Jarvis, Bonde's sideboard come into gear with the Bitter Blossom. Also just Thoughtseize sort of taking advantage of the clunkiness of the Miracles deck. And with that, he takes the match. But let's see what Jarvis brings up.